Today I'm going to show you a 2023 drama called Nowhere. The movie is set in a near-dystopian future, where Europe is facing a severe crisis, resulting in a shortage of essential supplies. After the fall of governments, a totalitarian regime called Not Enough at All emerges. To address the resource shortage, this regime resorts to exterminating people, starting from the elderly before moving on to pregnant women and children. Ireland, Iceland, and Norway are countries opposing the regime and providing refuge for those escaping the massacre. Among the refugee seekers are Nico and his wife Mia, who is currently pregnant. One evening, a smuggler leads them to the nearby harbor. They navigate through the containers, searching for an escape route. If a dog obstructs their path, they choose a different route and make sure to avoid being seen by helicopter lights. They hear police arresting runners, but they escape and encounter another smuggler who demands additional payment. They already invested a lot of money, so they decide to surrender their wedding rings to him. The couple joins a group of women, along with their children and a dog, in the back of a truck as they all escape. Mia uncovers her belly, concerned about the baby's lack of movement. Nico shows her the spot where the baby's foot always kicks. He also gifts her a Snickers bar that he had saved for their arrival in Ireland, as a small celebratory treat. A refugee uses a drill to make holes in the walls, and seeing the other children, Mia feels guilty. She and Nico left their first child behind, but Nico reminds her that the soldiers took her away, implying she's no longer alive. The truck stops to pick up more refugees after a few hours of traveling. Due to the overcrowding, the people hurriedly enter the truck. To alleviate the situation, the smuggler suggests dividing the group into two. The women and children will remain here, while the men will travel in a separate vehicle. Nico attempts to clarify that he was already inside the truck with his wife since the beginning, but he is waved off and forcibly removed. Mia watches through a hole as her husband leaves, then uses her phone to contact him. Nico reassures her that the trucks are heading in the same direction, so they will meet up again later. She needs to conserve battery and watch their belongings. As the truck moves forward, Mia peers through a hole and is troubled by the rampant violence she witnesses. Soldiers mercilessly kill rioters, and women are being treated like livestock, taken away in cages. Later, the truck stops at a checkpoint and the women quickly hide at the back. The driver shows papers to prove he's carrying cargo, but the soldiers still inspect the truck. Initially, only a limited number of boxes are visible as the refugees conceal themselves behind a fake wall. The leader, feeling suspicious, instructs one of his men to enter and shoot at the side wall from a distance. The man follows the leader's instructions and notices a discrepancy in distance. This leads the leader to suspect a concealed compartment. He and some soldiers enter the compartment and instruct the woman to exit. Mia climbs on top of the crate just as one of the women opens the fake wall, anticipating something bad. The leader kills her and the other soldiers open fire to eliminate the entire group, resulting in Mia being covered in their blood. At the end, only the dog and a small child remain standing. The dog escapes, but the soldiers ensure the child's death as well. Mia cries and texts her husband to hide once they leave. After a few hours, the truck arrives at a different harbor where the container is transferred onto a ship for transportation. Mia attempts to contact Nico, but he doesn't answer. She leaves a message informing him that the ship is taking her away. She examines the contents of her bag and switches on a light before going to sleep. Mia wakes up when the container shakes. She sees sailors running around through the bullet holes as a fierce storm wreaks havoc on the ship. Mia yells for help as she is tossed around, getting injured until she is knocked unconscious by a sudden landing. Shortly after, Mia awakens and realizes that water is entering the container through the holes. Upon glancing outside, she notices that the ship has sunk, leaving all the containers, including hers, adrift in the sea. In a state of panic, she attempts to contact Nico, but her phone is damaged and not turning on. She attempts to use another phone from her bag, but she is unable to unlock it because she doesn't know the password. Mia checks on the baby and realizes water is entering the container. She starts opening crates to search for a solution. They only have plastic Tupperwares, televisions, alcohol, and earbuds. She also discovers several hoodies and decides to wear one to keep herself warm. She searches the area and collects the items that fell from her bag, which include tape and a Swiss Army knife. Mia puts tape on the holes to reduce water flow. She then finds solace in a picture of her family in her diary. Then she hears screams and sees a sinking container with people inside through a hole. Mia desperately shouts for Nico and inserts her SIM card into a functioning phone. However, Nico does not answer, and the container sinks, causing Mia to break down in tears. Mia tries the phone repeatedly for the next few hours, but is unable to make it work. As night approaches, she takes hold of a knife with the intention of killing herself. However, her plans change abruptly when she feels the baby move. Mia chooses to prioritize the baby and falls asleep to the soothing sounds of whales singing nearby. Shortly after, Mia sees a shaking crate hanging above her and quickly steps aside, just in time to avoid being hit when it falls. Despite that, the hole created by the fall causes water to rapidly fill the container. Mia thinks she's going to drown, but then she wakes up. It was all just a nightmare. She notices that the tape covering the holes has come off, causing more water to enter the container. To address the situation, she uses her knife to drop the hanging container, finding more useless plastic Tupperwares. Suddenly, she has the idea to remove the rubber lining from the Tupperwares and using it to cover the holes. She retrieves a hose from a machine in a crate and inserts it into another opening to drain the water. She moves 2 crates against the wall for a makeshift bed and marks the water levels with tape, putting a maximum limit of water as well. Mia tries the phone again, but it still doesn't work. She then uses the wires from her earbuds to hang up the wet photographs from her diary. She inspects her supplies, ensuring proper rationing of water bottles and food. Additionally, she finds that the drill and lighter left behind by others are still functional. Mia's phone rings unexpectedly, displaying an unknown number. She answers and discovers it's Nico on the other end. He couldn't respond earlier because his phone battery died. He survived because the other driver deceived them by leaving them outside the city instead of taking them to the harbor. Mia explains her situation to Nico, and he promises to rescue her. In the meantime, she needs to conserve battery and focus on surviving for the sake of their child. Mia experiences a contraction and pleads with the baby to delay their arrival. She eats her sandwich and rearranges the crates, but quickly becomes bored. Noticing an approaching storm, she feels another contraction and hopes she's not going into labor. Unfortunately, as the storm arrives and rattles the container, Mia is truly going into labor. Mia screams in pain as water enters the container again. Her phone rings, but she drops it while trying to answer. Mia, having no alternative, removes her dress and hangs it on the ropes of the crates. She then stands up and delivers the baby in the water. Mia removes the umbilical cord from the baby's neck and gently pats the baby's back until she cries. Mia climbs onto a crate and holds onto the child, waiting for the storm to pass. The next morning, Mia notices the placenta being expelled from her body and carefully stores it in a plastic container. She cleans the area and organizes it as best she can. Then she places the baby in a small box with a hoodie before attending to her belongings. She eats some canned food, but her phone got wet and is broken. Adding to the problem, the baby is continuously crying, and Mia attempts to breastfeed her without success. Upon hearing the container's metal squeak, Mia decides to use a drill to create holes in the ceiling. Her goal is to cut a square that will serve as an exit. The noise intensifies the baby's crying. This frustrates Mia, who ends up yelling at her child, but she apologizes once she snaps out of her panic. Shortly after, Mia notices a reaction in her chest and attempts to breastfeed the baby once more. Finally, she's able to feed her baby. Mia can't resist eating all the food when she becomes exhausted. She resumes drilling the ceiling, but the drill loses power before she completes the task. After reinserting the SIM card into the original phone, it still won't work properly, causing her to have another breakdown. She discovers a knife and attempts to use it on the ceiling holes. It hurts her hands. Mia spends her time taking care of the baby and occasionally moistening the child's skin to provide relief from the heat. She struggles to sleep due to her growling stomach, so she ultimately succumbs to desperation and chooses to eat her own placenta. Mia hears the whales outside and sees one hit the container, making the baby cry. She scares the whale by hitting the container walls. The next morning, Mia attempts to use the knife to cut the hole again, but it breaks instead. The phone is still not functioning, and Mia needs to consume the remaining clean water. Mia, feeling dizzy from the heat, splashes seawater on her head and licks water drops from the ceiling to cool down. Regrettably, it causes her to feel ill. As time passes, Mia's dizziness worsens and she is surprised to see a paper plane land on her legs. Her first daughter suddenly appears, accusing her mother of being responsible for her death caused by the soldiers. Mia cries as Nico comforts her, reminding her that it wasn't her fault. After waking up from the fever dream, Mia feels relieved as she notices that it is raining and water is coming through the holes. Mia drinks the rainwater and collects it in plastic containers. When grabbing a can causes the lid to break, she gets an idea. She uses the rope from the crates to pull down and open a hole in the ceiling, allowing sunlight to enter. Mia climbs on top of the container and sees no land nearby. To get fresh air, she and the baby sleep upstairs. When it's time to change the baby, Mia throws the dirty hoodie into the water. She quickly grabs a rope and a piece of metal to fish, but is unable to catch any. She gives up and spots a passing plane, so she quickly enters the container and smashes a television to obtain a piece of its screen. She climbs out, but hurts her leg in the process. Ignoring her pain, she uses a piece of the screen to reflect sunlight, but the plane doesn't notice her and flies away. Mia, feeling disappointed, goes back into the container and uses wires and small metal pieces to stitch her wound. She uses alcohol to alleviate the pain of the process. Later, she notices a large number of earbuds and comes up with a new idea. Using the wires, she starts creating a net. After completing it, she casts the net using a dirty cloth. She successfully catches some fish and consumes them raw. Mia works diligently to ensure her survival in the upcoming days. She continues draining water from the container and catching fishes to store in the Tupperwares. She takes paper sheets from her diary and writes SOS notes on them. Then, she puts these notes inside the Tupperwares and throws them into the sea, hoping that someone will find them. In the afternoon, Mia shares family pictures with the baby and chooses to name the child Noah, after her grandmother, as Nico had suggested. She also shares a picture of Noah's sister and tells the story of how soldiers took her. She still blames herself for it. In the evening, Mia sees that Noah is feeling cold. To warm up, Mia decides to start a fire using alcohol and a lighter. Mia wakes up to a noise hitting the wall and finds out it's a plastic container. Her phone rings and she happily answers to hear Nico's voice, but he delivers unfortunate news. He attempted to steal a boat, but was spotted by soldiers and subsequently shot. He is currently hiding, but he is losing blood slowly and his time is running out. Nico calls Mia to say goodbye and asks her to promise that she will survive. Mia places the phone next to Noah so that Nico can hear Noah's cute little noises. Mia and Nico express their love for each other, but then Mia's battery dies and the wind extinguishes the fire while she creases. Mia still has the Snickers bar and plans to save it for the end of her journey, as she promised. On the 26th day, Mia is on the verge of losing control. The container walls are covered in drawings and rants on paper sheets. Mia and the baby now live on top of the container, as it is almost at its water limit. Mia is using some wood, plastic containers, and rope to build a raft. A seagull lands on the container and takes some of Mia's fish, giving her hope that they are close to land. In the evening, Mia successfully starts a fire and prepares a sail for her raft. Mia hears a noise in the container and quickly realizes it will sink soon. She dives in to collect all her pictures. She spots a Snickers bar in a plastic container and decides to venture deeper to retrieve it. As the water pushes Noah's raft, Mia's foot gets tangled in rope. She fights against it to avoid drowning. Using a metal object, she successfully cuts the rope and swiftly escapes from the sinking container. Mia is terrified when she reaches the surface and can't see Noah. Suddenly, some water hits Noah, causing her to cry. Mia follows the noise and reunites with her child. The next morning, Mia throws fish from a plastic container to attract birds while floating around. A group of seagulls fly above them, catching the attention of a nearby boat. They quickly head towards the direction and save the small raft, discovering Noah inside unharmed. A rope attached to the raft is hanging in the sea. The sailors begin pulling on it until Mia's body emerges. The sailors quickly perform CPR on Mia, but she remains unresponsive. Despite this, they persist in their efforts for the sake of the baby. Finally, their efforts pay off as Mia finally shows signs of reaction. The sailors then hand the baby to her and use the radio to call for assistance. Mia takes a moment to realize she's safe. She looks at the horizon and sees they're approaching Ireland, where she can start her new life. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss videos like this.